if you keep doing this, you're going to stifle these people, right? These leaders that you're trying to mentor and bring up.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to another episode. As always, I am so grateful to be here to be with you for another episode. And today I am super excited for this conversation. As you all know, I work with organizations and I'm always meeting with new leaders. And so this leader right here, this sister, first of all, we met because I did an engagement with them where I did a fireside conversation. And from the moment she was moderating the conversation with me, I was like, we were vibing. I was like, oh, yes, she definitely is someone I want to connect with and get to know. And then we had a meeting before this podcast, and I was instantly like, I just was like, this is my bestie. And so during the conversation, though, like there were so many gems that she was dropping that I was like, we need to bring this to our audience. Because if y'all know me, y'all know I'm all about like trauma informedness and communication gems and vulnerability and emotional intelligence. And so I am so excited to have Desha Dickson here with me. She is the Vice President of Community Wellness with Tower Health. And we're about to have this conversation because one of the things that I recognized in our conversation is that she is the expression in leadership of what it looks like to be emotionally intelligent as a leader. So thank you, Desha, for coming on and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And I have to echo, when we first met, there were so many things that I was saying, and to hear you say, yes, that's the right thing to do, or that's great. It was very affirming because sometimes you do things and it's instinct. You just do it and you don't necessarily know it's the right thing. So I appreciate that affirmation. So yes, Desha Dickson, I'm the Vice President for Community Wellness here at Tower Health. I've been here for 15 years. And my story in healthcare has taken so many turns and ups and downs because prior to Tower Health, I had no healthcare experience. I had worked in the community for the community, doing community development work, working with different vulnerable populations. And when I came to Reading, what I realized very quickly was there's an intersection between community health and vulnerable populations. And the people I was working with who were homeless, who were housing insecure, or who had stability issues, whether it was food or transportation, these were the same patients who were overutilizing the emergency department or missing visits. And there was no community wellness department when I started at Tower. I started at a department of one. And now we've grown to over 60 employees. I have 7 directors who report up to me. And those departments cross over from health equity to street outreach to outpatient substance abuse to culture and belonging, formerly DEI. So many different arms of what I call community wellness, which is why it's wellness and not community health, because in my mind, wellness wasn't just about physical health. It wasn't just about how you show up at the hospital, but really overall wellness. Who makes up a person, whether they have diabetes or not, whether they're at the hospital or not, but who is this person? And so many of the programs that I have in my department focus on whole person care.
I love that. And one of the things I love about like community wellness is that that community includes the healthcare workers.
Absolutely.
And I think oftentimes we don't often include the clinicians in the community, in the healthcare community, inside of community in terms of community engagement and community wellness. So as I heard you speaking, I was like, oh yeah, like that's this very inclusive of the entire community. And that's very important.
Oh, absolutely. The first program that I created here back in 2011 was what I call the volunteer program. And it wasn't to invite volunteers from the community in, it was taking employees out into the community to volunteer. And my thinking behind that was, you'll be more empathetic, more compassionate about the patients you see if you know them in their natural habitat, if you see where they are, maybe things that they have to deal with. And so I think that was very impactful because there were a lot of people who maybe worked in West Reading but weren't very familiar with with Reading, the city of Reading, or maybe more rural areas. And so to be connected with your full community, I do think that builds empathy. And you get
Yeah.
to know people, and not in their most vulnerable moments, right? When they're in the hospital seeking care, but when they're with their families. Where do they worship? Where are they shopping for food? Where do they go for leisure? And then you can start to put two and two together. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. If I'm telling this patient to walk outside for exercise, but there are no clear paths. Maybe their sidewalks are all broken up, or maybe where they live is not the safest. So my advice to them needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I think empathy really like leads to the capacity for vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about this idea of vulnerability, especially like in the healthcare system
Mm-hmm.
and as leaders, because I think that we are conditioned that emotions don't belong in the workplace. There's a narrative around what vulnerable means, like vulnerable equals weak.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it causes this certain dynamic, not only between the clinician and the patient, but also between colleagues and
Oh,
between
absolutely.
leaders. And so I'd love to hear, what has your experience been around like this whole narrative of vulnerability, and especially as it pertains to like leadership and your colleagues?
Yeah, I see a lot of people really being afraid to be vulnerable. And for me, I think tapping into that and not being afraid of that has really helped me, one, to form relationships with people in a different way, in a more meaningful way, but two, help me become a better leader. So when I came to Reading, I had to be vulnerable. I didn't know so many of the acronyms that they were talking about, but I had no sense of reference. So
Yeah.
everything was brand new, right? Everything was completely different. What I did know though is that I wanted to stay and I wanted to succeed. And so having that as my guiding post meant that I had to humble myself and say, hey, when you said CMS, what did that mean? What does HCAT mean? And in front of people who will be like, she doesn't know what that means. No, actually, I don't. And
Right.
so what I hoped is that by modeling that behavior, like I'm going to ask a question. I'm okay with you saying, I'll touch base with you later. Fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the question. I can't sit here and pretend like I understand what's going on, because my goalpost is I want to stay, I want to succeed. In order to do that, I have to be vulnerable. And the other thing too is as I started to grow my staff, I was really committed to building a diverse staff and really inviting people in who perhaps would have gotten passed over by other hiring managers because maybe they were new graduates, maybe they didn't have every bullet point that was on the job description that they needed. And for me to welcome them, I had to show them that it was okay to make a mistake. Again, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to share pieces of yourself. So I say all the time, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm an employee,
Right.
in that order. And that's okay. And if I lead with that, then I want you to know it's okay for you to do that too. It's a balancing act to
Yeah.
be all those things, whatever you are outside of work, it's a balancing act. And if we can all show up authentically, then we can balance it a little bit better. But as I advanced in my career here at Reading, what I realized was that more eyes were on me, whether I knew it or not. More eyes were on me. And so it was really important for me to be intentional with my words, intentional with my actions, pull people aside and say, hey, in this meeting, I noticed that you look puzzled. Can I answer something for you? Would you like to grab coffee? And the number of people that would respond and say, oh my God, thank you so much. Because in this environment, particularly in healthcare, it can be so overwhelming and intimidating. I many times in my early times here in Tower, I'll be like, I can't believe I'm sitting next to people who went to school for 32 years. I can't believe I'm just in the room. And so it can feel super overwhelming. But when you break that down and you're saying, wait, I'm as good at my job as you are in your role. And honestly, it's not you do good, I do good. We do well together. Right? And when you can get past that intimidation, you make a really good team member.
Absolutely. That's so interesting because I think about, you came from this community and like the community health
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. into healthcare. And so I feel like you have the skills of working with and being emotionally intelligent in the community. And then
Mhm.
you come into this industry where that is not encouraged.
No.
So as a clinician, like we are trained on the opposite spectrum
Mhm.
and to model any type of emotion, to model vulnerability, to
Yeah.
ask questions. And it's like, oh no, like we can't do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And so I love is that what we're talking about is psychological safety. That is like where
Mhm.
I was like, oh, that's learner safety when be able to ask questions. And when you're not only, I think one of the things that I'm hearing is it's not only just an allowing, it's an intentionality
Right.
behind, like when you say you look puzzled, like
Right.
inviting in the
Yeah.
learning,
It's
inviting
okay.
in, it's
Mhm.
okay. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. And then, like, even so, one of the pieces of psychological safety is like that challenger safety, right?
Mhm.
Like when someone is offering an alternative point of view, and like, how does that show up on your teams in terms of a vulnerability piece?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I just want to go back to 1 second.
Yeah,
So
sure.
while it's great to ask those questions, it's also great to understand who you can't ask questions to.
Ooh,
And so it's
yes.
really important that you observe, watch how people are
Mhm.
behaving, watch how they're responding,
Mhm.
because not everyone is going to respond to a lot of questions. And so
Mhm.
that was really important for me too, to
Mhm.
say, okay, who is a safe space and then who definitely is not. You
Yes,
know what I
I
mean? Just
love
because
that.
you really can sidetrack yourself,
Mhm.
and just be like, okay, I'm never asking a question again. And it's not the
Yeah.
question, it was the person and then
Mhm.
maybe the place.
Mhm.
And early on in my career, because I was gung ho, like you can do things so much better. You're missing out on these patients. There were many times when someone would answer a question or challenge something I was saying, and I would take it personal. I would take it so personal. So as I'm
Mhm.
coming into Tower and I'm saying, hey, we should be asking questions of patients about housing and utilities and food. We should be asking that. And they
Mhm.
would be like, no, we shouldn't. We
Mm.
shouldn't. Right? That's not our role. Or I
Right.
would say, we need to partner more with the community. No, we shouldn't. We do
Mm.
enough. We care for people. We make sure. And so there was sometimes, many times, there was that tug and pull
Mhm.
between, well, I'm already doing what I have to do. That's not my role. We're not social workers. And here I am. I call my team the great disruptors. Because what
Oof.
we're saying is, we appreciate what you're doing. I
Yes.
think there's an opportunity to do it better.
Mhm.
There were many times, particularly before social determinants of health was like a buzzword.
Yeah.
So back in 2016, 2017, no one
Mhm.
was talking about it the way they're talking about it now,
Yeah.
right? People weren't embracing health equity, pre George Floyd, pre COVID, the way that they're talking about it now. So between 2011 and say 2019, it definitely was an uphill battle.
Mhm.
Definitely was an uphill battle, to the point sometimes when I would say, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm trying to do the right thing, but I feel like I'm carrying this on my back and I'm
Mhm.
fighting to get people to see that this is the right thing. And then I realized that I was saying it the wrong way. That I was
Mhm.
talking to people in the healthcare space the way I was talking to people in the community space. And that
Mhm.
is not the right way to
Right.
communicate. So I had to go back to basics and say, observe, read the
Mhm.
room,
Mhm.
figure out what's important to them, figure out
Mhm.
what's important to you, and meet in the middle. And so
Mhm.
then I started to tie back what I was saying to lower ED utilization, lower
Mhm.
missed visits,
Mhm.
increased patient satisfaction,
Mhm.
lower turnover. So I'd never had to do that in the community. Because if I'm
Mhm.
saying, hey, let's build a program where people get more food, great. Sounds like a great idea. There was no,
Yeah.
there was, I didn't have to
Resistance to
convince
that.
people when I worked at United Way. There's no convincing. That's what we
Mhm.
do. But here it was like, we do great things. We take care of people, period.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So that was like the tug and pull. And I learned a lot just by listening and being open to, okay, I understand what they're saying. I'm asking them to do more work on top of what they're already doing. And so that was another humbling moment because I wasn't seeing it from their point of view. I was really just one-sided, like, this is the right thing to do, figure it out. And they were saying, no, it's too much. And so really to make these initiatives successful, I really had to humble myself and say, okay, I'm not saying it the right way.
Right.
And I'm approaching this kind of already defensive.
So even like coming back to that would be like modeling growth mindset.
Mhm.
And like that we are human and that we are fallible, which is just like another aspect of modeling that. I wonder, this is what I wonder. I wonder if, because I feel like that when we model things, then people look and they're like, and then they begin to work. People look and they're like, maybe I should do that too. Have you noticed that either colleagues or the people on your team, as you've modeled this vulnerability, as you've modeled the kind of leadership, the emotionally intelligent leadership that you model, have you found that they're starting to pick up on these things?
Oh, yeah. When I look at all the things that I've done that I'm so proud about, the programs that I've started, the grants that I've written, to me, my best accomplishment are the directors that work with me. Because each of them I hired, personally hired them all, and none of them at the time had leadership experience. They were never directors in the past. And I see them interact with their staff, and I say, I know I influenced that. When I see them really pushing work-life balance, when I see them tapping into their staff and saying, how can I support you more? When I see them coaching their staff, when I see them having very difficult conversations, right? I value the work that you do here. However, we need to talk about X, Y, and Z. When I see them in that role, I say, that's what I'm most proud. Because not only is it them, but it's their staff. And the culture that we formed in community wellness, to me, is second to none. As we were going through all the things with COVID and things were up and down, internally, externally, I kept saying, I can't control what happens externally, but I can control the culture on my team.
Yeah.
Right. I can make sure that my team members, whether you're a director or individual contributor, you feel like you're important. You feel like you can collaborate, that you can speak up if you don't like how things are going. You feel like you can approach your leader. You can bring yourself to work. I'm going to ask you, how are your kids? What'd you do this weekend? I'm trying to connect with you. And I see my directors doing the same thing. So of all the things, that's what I'm most proud about, because I do see people picking up on that. And I see my directors still asking me, how do I have this conversation? And I know that if I wasn't modeling that inquisitive behavior, they wouldn't either.
Yes.
Right? They would just let it go. Oh, okay. You don't want to do your job, you'll get fired. Instead of saying, wait, this person is not typically like this. Let's find out, is something going on in their personal life? Instead of just jumping to, oh, they've been late, they've not been turning in assignments, let's take a more human approach and figure out that's not what you're used to seeing from this person. So let's talk about it a little bit more. And when I see them initiate those conversations without me or come to me and say, how do I? Then I know that they've been watching me do the same thing.
I love that. I love that. I wonder, like in your peer-to-peer title relationships, and even in the relationships that, like in your bosses, how have they responded to the type of leadership you bring? Do you notice that they respond more, what's the word that I want to use, affirmatively to your leadership? And have you noticed where there's a difference in maybe like someone, how they respond to others as opposed to how they respond to you based on what you bring inside of this leadership?
So I've had 7 bosses in 15 years.
Ooh, a lot of bosses.
Yeah. So that's been the challenge. And that goes back to observing reading the room. And so I've always had to adjust. I would say for the most part of the 7, 5 of them really were just like, great, I'm glad that you're here. There wasn't really a lot of direction or affirmation. I think some of it may have been I don't really understand what you do, but I'm
Mhm.
glad that you're doing it because we're getting grants, we're getting in the news.
Mhm.
I had one CEO a few years ago who was fantastic, and he was very positive in terms of your leadership style, your communication style, very supportive. And
Mhm.
then my boss now, Pamela, is spectacular. One of the things I've always said in my career is that I needed a me for me. And I
Yes.
never had that. I needed someone to speak about me when I wasn't in the room. I
Mhm.
needed someone to reassure me that I was doing the right thing, to let me
Mhm.
know that, yes, these are hard decisions, but I got your back. I have you.
Mhm.
And she's that person. She's the me for me. We recently went through a very difficult staff situation.
Yeah.
And whenever you have to go through those situations, even though you know you're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
it's painful because
Yeah.
you know that the decision that you're making is going to affect someone else.
That's right.
And once she got word that we had to make this decision, she reached out to me and she said, "Listen, I know this is tough. Are you okay? I
Mm.
know this is completely different from what your leadership style is. You lead
Mhm.
the part. Are you okay?"
Yes.
I thought, wow, that's awesome that
Yeah.
you would think of me in that moment.
Right.
This was a Thursday. And then Saturday morning, she texts me again. Are you okay? I'm thinking of you. And I want to let you know you're a great leader. Despite this,
Mm.
you are a great leader. And that does help. That does help. And I think I responded back to her was I finally feel like I can be the leader I want to be. I can go to her with a varying number of questions and not feel like, okay, you're going to write this down and revisit it in my performance evaluation.
Mm.
Remember,
Mhm.
you asked me this clarifying
Yeah.
question. So I do think it's important, even for senior and executive leaders, to have that person that
Yeah.
they can go to and support them in that way.
And what it speaks to is that this being an emotionally intelligent leader, being a leader who I say gives acknowledgement freely
Mhm.
and generously, and even giving acknowledgement. And this is, I know this might be like a weird thing. People might be listening, like, why is she saying this? It's a weird thing to say, but even giving an acknowledgement can feel like a vulnerable moment
Yeah.
because you never know how people are going to receive that compliment, how people are going
Yeah.
to receive that acknowledgement. So it just goes to show the importance of having leaders who have your back so that they make it safe for you to be able to provide that kind of leadership to your teams as well.
Yeah. It's okay. A few years ago, my team really started to expand.
Mhm.
And again, all the programs in my department, I started, right? So I would
Mhm.
start a program, run it, and
Mhm.
then we would get enough money, I would hire someone. Well,
Mhm.
then I found myself like, okay, now I have all these people here running programs that I created. What am I doing? Right. And my job was growing. So
Yeah.
I honestly didn't even have the time to
Mhm.
do those things anymore, which was great. But I did find myself still hanging on and still trying to do those manager day-to-day things. And I had to really check myself and say, if you keep doing this, you're going to stifle these people, right? These leaders that you're trying to mentor and bring up. You really have to step away and give them more autonomy. And I can say I did that, but it was very difficult. It
Mhm.
was very difficult. And one of the things that I reconciled with myself was I don't need I don't need that anymore. I did that. I did
Yes.
that. I don't need to be on every interview. I don't need to be acknowledged for everything. I know I created that program. I created that program.
Right.
What's more important is that it gets done. And
Yes.
I don't, at this point, don't have the time. And honestly, the directors I have, they're better at it than I
Mhm.
am. They are
Yeah.
better at it than I am. I'm a strategy person.
Yeah.
I'm not a day to day in the weeds person.
Yeah.
And the more that I got in tune with what my strengths were, the more I could identify what I was not good at, and the
Yes.
more I could identify with what they were good at. And I said, okay,
Yes.
here's how we work together. But I had to get out of the way.
Mm. Oh, I love this. So I'm gonna change the channel just a little bit
Okay.
because I'm thinking of something here, and I'm thinking of parenthood.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason is because I say how you do anything is how you do everything.
Mhm.
And so as I know, like for the listeners who are in multiple different phases of their life, this, what you're talking about, is actually very universal.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it spans, I'm like you, this is so relevant inside of the organizational space, especially inside of the healthcare space at all levels. But when I'm listening to you talk about like how we sometimes have to step back, and I have an
Hmm.
11-year-old preteen, by
Hmm.
the way, and give people their autonomy.
Hmm.
And so leadership, how it shows up in the workplace, how it shows up at home can be very similar.
For sure.
And then even like this piece of allowing ourselves to be vulnerable with our partners, with our friends, with our kids even, because we
Hmm.
can't, we're human. And I think
Right.
that's like the crux of it, is that we're human and we are raising tiny humans, or we're raising a team
Right.
of
Right. Right.
humans, right? And so the benefits are very universal to what you're talking about in this type of leadership. And I was seeing my, of course, I see my leadership with my own team and my business, but I was just seeing it with my parenting.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah. Especially, I have two boys too, 12 and 16. And I
mhm,
think, especially in our culture, being able to be vulnerable and say,
mhm,
I need help is
mhm,
just something that sometimes I think is foreign. And I'm the oldest of four. And so I was definitely taking on more responsibility at a young age. And vulnerability was not something that I was taught, it was something I learned
mhm,
as I got older. It was definitely not, how are you feeling today? No one
mhm,
asked me that.
mhm.
No one asked me that. Relationships were very transactional. This is what
Yeah.
I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. And so I um, definitely have to intentionally do that with my kids, right? Because I'm not used to that. And so one of the things that I intentionally do with my kids is I set time aside. We're going to talk about your day, right?
Mhm,
And I want you to be open with me. And I don't push it. I don't push it,
mhm.
but I'm making myself
Yeah.
available because there are times when you're not going to want to talk, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm here when you do want to talk. And I
Yeah.
think that really allows my kids to say, hey, this is what's going on with me. And when I hear my kids talk to me like that, I'm so proud because they're
Mhm.
telling me things I would have never told my mom, but maybe I would have if she asked me.
That's right.
I don't know. Just conversations that we just have never had. I never had as a kid, and
Yeah.
I'm so proud of that because
Mhm.
I feel like my kids feel like, okay, this is a person that I can open up to. My
Yeah.
mom passed away a year ago,
Mm.
and I said to my son, I realized that this was hard on you too. They
Yeah.
were very close.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there for you the way that I wanted to be because I was struggling in my own grief. It was
Yeah.
very difficult for me to show up the way I wanted to show up. And so
Yeah.
I said, I really think that you should see a therapist because
Mhm.
I'm unable to really work with you, sit down and hear you because when my son was talking to me about how sad he was, my mind just kept going back to I lost my mom. And I
Mhm.
just wasn't able to process it and
Yeah.
really show up for him. And so I said, you need to see someone. I'm not the one.
Yeah.
I'm not the one.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful because I, I grew up, I think we might have grew up in similar generations because there was no talk about therapists. In
Oh
fact, when
no,
I was in residency and
no.
I was like really suffering from some deep depression, it was like, oh, you could just be strong, or,
Yeah.
oh, you're going to be all right. And so like I was even afraid to go
Oh,
to a
absolutely.
therapist. And
Hmm.
so it wasn't until much, much later that I was able to engage a therapist and do the work that I needed to do. But my
Hmm.
son, like even with all the things they're dealing with in the world, but in their schools, my son came to me and he said, "Mom, would you have a therapist? Do you think I could talk to a therapist
Oh,
too?"
that's great. Look at
And
that.
I was like, "Wow, yeah, absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely, you
Hmm.
can." And so to be able to break those cycles
Oh, it's
is,
generational and that
yes,
transformational. The fact that your kids can even form that they feel safe enough to talk
yeah,
about it with you because
mhm,
we just never had those words.
That's right.
My sister tells, it's not funny, but my sister always tells this story. And one day she came home from school and she was telling my mom, like, I had a bad day. And she said, before she could finish, my mom was like, you had a bad day. Oh, the mortgage is due and this is due. And then
Yeah.
she was like, what could be so bad about going to school? You want to switch? And my
Mm.
sister was like, I never mentioned a bad day after that.
That's real.
It's
That's
real, right?
real. Like you
Hmm.
like we
That's
can't
it.
us have a bad day. Right. And that our kids can be like, yeah, like my son will get in the car and say, oh, I just didn't have a
Yeah.
good day. And I can ask, do you want to talk about it?
Hmm.
And he'll say no.
Hmm.
And then maybe 20 minutes later, he's like, I'm
Want to
ready
talk
to
about it?
tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that you mentioned that I think is like really critical is this piece of asking for help,
Oh, yeah.
because I too, oldest child.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I started reframing the way I ask my son to do things is, could you help me with?
Yeah.
Or I need help with. And we talk about this around him being in school, if he needs help that he can ask.
Right.
And so I'm trying to like really give him that language of it's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Like, I
Yeah.
need help with the dishes, or I need you to come. I want you to come help me.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to come help me make this bread.
I do that too, right. And I think for me, it's reminding all the occupants of my home, we're a team.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And there are some things that I do well. Again, there's some things that you do well. And none of us have to do all things. So I think everyone who knows me knows I hate doing laundry. That is the thing I hate to do the most. So here's how you all can help out. Do your own laundry.
Yes.
That makes me happy. When I'm happy, you're happy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I will supply the machines, the electricity, the supplies. You're old enough to do your own laundry.
Mhm.
You're old enough to do your own laundry. And I don't want to do the dishes if I cook. And so here's what I did. I meal planned, I got the food, I cooked the food. That was my contribution as a team member. Your contribution is to clean up. Like that's fair. So
Yeah.
I do it, particularly because I have boys.
Mhm.
I realized that some of that is just influential from how I grew up, seeing
Yeah.
that with 3 girls and a boy, my brother didn't have any responsibilities. I really wanted my kids to understand that you need to be able to take care of yourself.
Yes.
And that too, you're going to be on someone else's team, and you need to be able to pull your own weight. And basic things like doing your laundry, doing the dishes, being able to speak up. I really want to raise kids who can have these intelligent, emotional conversations. Right? I'm upset. I'm sad. I was disappointed. And being able to put words to your feelings can help the other person. Oh, I didn't know you were feeling that way. Let's talk about it.
That's right.
Instead of throwing yourself on the floor or giving somebody the silent treatment, your feelings words so people can work through it.
And also to be able to set and respect boundaries.
Oh yeah.
My son was upset with me yesterday. He was upset with me. That's not an uncommon occurrence as a
Absolutely.
parent, right? And as a preteen. And so he was like, Mom, I just need some space. I just need some space. And I was like, say less. I'll give you space. And then when you're ready.
People are afraid of that though, if someone is going to be upset with you. And I think as you grow into leadership, whether it's home or at work, you have to sit with that. Like there are not going to be times when everybody is your friend.
That's right.
There are not going to be times when everybody agrees with what you're doing. Somebody somewhere is going to be upset. And that has to be okay. That has to be okay. You have to be okay with not being everybody's friend. And I do see people struggle with that a lot.
Yes.
A lot.
And I think even coming back to what you were talking about, like in teams and leadership, we need to be able to communicate those things. And one of the things that I often tell coaches, like people like Coach and colleagues, is I use this phrase a lot. The way my brain works is.
Yeah.
Or the way I'm able to be my best self for you is. And that just saying that sometimes translates for people like, oh, okay.
Yeah, this is why I'm saying it this way. Yeah, definitely.
I need 30 minutes of quiet time because if I don't, then I'm not going to be great for you later.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, setting boundaries. Right.
Yeah,
I think
those boundaries.
And I think those are things that people struggle with, is particularly if you're like a perpetual people pleaser, right? What if I do
Mm-hmm.
this and this person is upset, or I block out time on my calendar and
Mm-hmm.
I'm really a stickler about that, right? So
Yes.
if I have meetings back to back all day, I've literally done nothing
Yeah.
because I'm just sitting on these different meetings. Whereas if I block out some time, then I have some time to debrief or get my day set up. And so
Mm-hmm.
if someone were to schedule over that block time, your initial reaction is, well, I'm not really doing anything, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to accept the meeting. I got out of that and said, I am doing something.
Right.
I am busy. I'm not
Right.
meeting, but I am doing something. And no, I can't give you that time because
Mm-hmm.
in the end, I suffer for it,
That's right.
right? So
Mhm.
that hour that you're
Mhm.
giving up, or 2 hours, you have to make it up somewhere.
Somewhere. Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
typically it's going to be you working an extra 2 hours, or you
Mm-hmm.
can say to that person, hey, one, do we need to meet? Can we communicate via email?
Mm-hmm.
Two, is there someone else on my team that can stand in my place? Or three,
Mm-hmm.
let's just find a new
Yeah.
time. And sometimes you set those boundaries and people are like, whoa, she's always busy, available at that hour.
Right. And I think even it's so interesting because as we're talking, I'm actually seeing like even the way that vulnerability is perceived as being so narrow because it takes courage and it's like taking a risk to set a boundary for
Yeah.
many people who have not modeled that in the past or haven't had it modeled to them in the
Right.
past. And so like when you're taking a risk, you're being vulnerable. So I think
Mhm.
when people are listening today, like really start to expand like all of the various things that constitute allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to be open, to take risks, and how that can actually grow you, but grow the people
Oh,
around you.
absolutely.
So I just love all the places that we've
Mhm.
been,
Yeah.
from teams and to our bosses and to our kids and our
Right.
family
Yeah.
members. And I really just appreciate the wisdom
Thank you.
and the knowledge that you have brought to this conversation.
Yeah. And I've said this in the past. It definitely has, it's not been without scars.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't walk into a space where you are often the only minority,
Yes.
right? I'm often younger than my peers,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not from Berks County.
Mm-hmm.
So coming into this space with like those three strikes, and then I don't have a healthcare background, and
Mm-hmm.
saying to people, I think you could do things differently. So when I think of that now, I'm like, she was courageous.
Yeah.
She was bold,
Yes.
but because she didn't have anything to lose.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It was
Yes.
like, okay, I'm gonna throw everything at the wall,
That's right.
and I'm gonna see what sticks, and I'm gonna keep going at it. But there
Mhm.
were definitely some times where people reminded me, you're not from here. You
Wow.
don't have a clinical background. You don't look like us. You don't sound like us. And it's
Mhm.
in those moments when I had to remind myself that I can rely on me.
Yeah.
I don't need a cheerleading squad. I don't need people in the background. I can be my own best friend.
That's
I could
right.
be my own cheerleader. I could be my own motivator. So
Mhm.
those 5 bosses that I had, that I remember one boss, we would do our one-on-one and she would be asleep.
What?
She would be asleep and I'm like, hello, I'm still here, I'm still here. And so that taught me to, I can bet on me.
Yeah.
I can bet on me. And if I have to stand alone to do the right thing, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. And so my journey here at Tower has taught me more about my personal self than
Mhm.
my professional self. I've grown more just, I'm going to walk into a room full of people who don't look like me, don't talk like me, can't relate to things, and I'm going to convince them to do something
Yeah.
completely different. And when I have walked out of the room having accomplished that, that
Mhm.
was the best reward I could have. I can't believe I just did that. And
Yeah.
then that carries into the next time, into the next time.
Yeah.
And of all the wins, there were many losses, right? There were
Mhm.
many times when people were like, no, you're as crazy as we thought. Go ahead. And that's okay too. That's okay. Like I said, everybody's not going to be your friend. And there's
Yeah.
plenty of people that, they made it obvious that, hey,
Yes.
we're not getting on. But I will say, I've outlasted them
Yeah.
because when you do the right thing,
Mhm.
longevity will follow, right?
Yes. And when you stand in your authentic
Oh, absolutely.
self and
Hmm.
your authentic expression, which is
Right.
what I'm also hearing, is like you stood on business, as the young people
Absolutely.
say.
Yeah, yeah.
Know?
Yeah, you can't
Yes.
move me. I think the other thing that was really helpful for me too, during that time when I called myself cutting my teeth here at Reading or Tower, my kids were really young.
Mm,
My kids were really young, and when you have young kids, balancing is a whole different definition, right?
absolutely.
Trying to do that.
Mhm.
And my joy, my sense of purpose didn't come from my job.
Mm,
Right? It didn't come from my job. And so
yeah.
there wasn't too much you could do that could shake me.
Yeah.
Because when I was leaving here, I was going home to the things that did give me purpose, that did give
Yes.
me joy. And so
Yes.
really understanding that people can only do things to you that you allow them to do.
That's
Don't give the wrong people dominion over your emotional and spiritual and
beautiful.
mental health. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You
Yes.
can say you don't like me. You can say you don't like my ideas. That's okay because there's three
Mhm.
people who adore me. And I
That's right.
adore them. I don't necessarily want to be your friend anyway.
Right.
That's okay.
That's
That's
okay.
okay. It's all
Yes.
right. We don't have to be friends. There's plenty of people you're going to work with that you're going to connect to and you're going to really bond and have great friendships. There are going to be
Mhm.
people that you're just not, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things that you said that, like, just behind that is that there's not always going to be wins when you take the risk.
Mhm.
And I think that, like, what you just spoke really speaks to the mindset that you must have, because if we quit at the first no, if we
Oh,
quit at
yeah.
the first non-affirmative response of
Yeah.
our taking risk or our
Mhm.
vulnerability, then we will never grow, and then we'll be stuck in that people pleasing, and
Yeah.
we'll be like letting our progress hang on whether people like us. Like you said, you have three other people
Yeah.
who adore you, right?
Mhm.
But this space is not always about building friendship. It's about
Oh,
getting
absolutely.
outcomes. And
Mhm.
you can be relational in doing
Mhm.
that, but it won't always be that way. And I think you just
And that's
articulated
okay.
that very well. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
I think that that's important. I have one of my directors move from an individual contributor to a director.
mhm.
And what she was used to was being very friendly with her peers,
Yeah.
going out, doing things off hours. And what she found was when she moved here and she was in a different department and now she had direct reports, they weren't checking for her. And I
Mhm.
said, why would you? Why would they?
Right.
You're their boss.
Yeah.
You're
It's a
not their
different
peer.
dynamic.
It's a
That's right.
different dynamic. And so
Mhm.
when they go to lunch, they might talk about you.
Right.
They're not inviting you.
You got to be okay with that.
You have to be okay with that. And you're not gonna. You can't lead thinking this is a fully democratic process.
Right.
Hey, we're gonna try something new. Who votes yes? They all vote yes. You don't want to do it. You shouldn't ask them to vote.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're the leader. You can take input and then you have the final decision.
Mhm.
But you're not equal in that sense where everybody's input is the same. You
Right.
have to be the decision maker. And I think for her, that was really a turning point, realizing that you do have someone on your team who is great at her job. She doesn't like you.
Mhm.
She doesn't like you. And maybe she doesn't like the fact that you're now her boss, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not something you can fire someone over. It is
Right.
something that you, as an individual leader, you have to get over. You have to
Right.
lower your expectations. You're
Mhm. Yeah.
expecting her to be your friend, and you're
Mhm.
not her friend. You're her boss,
Mhm.
and you need to act as such. But I do think that is difficult for people to arrive at.
Yes, yes. We could talk all day. And this conversation has been so rich. Like, it's just
Yeah,
been so many places to go with it. And we know this is not the last conversation,
absolutely.
because
Yeah.
this is going to lead into a conversation that we talked about before now, which is the flexibility of communication.
Mhm.
And you touched on it. You started to touch on it. So I look forward to having that conversation about what it looks like to be a flexible leader, a
Yeah.
flexible communicator in leadership. So I that will definitely be scheduling that conversation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Always.
Yes, but thank you so much for this conversation. And I want to ask, people want to know about the work that you're doing, want to
Mhm.
reach out to you, or however you prefer for them to follow you and the work that you do. What's the best way for them to do that?
So there's two ways. If you want to see the work that we do across the Tower Health system, go to towerhealth.org and you can see on the community page all of our hospitals. We list all of the work that we're doing. And if anyone wants to reach out personally, it's Desha.Dickson@towerhealth.org. Happy to talk to anybody anytime.
All right, I'll just make sure we keep that in the show notes for people who want to reach out. And again, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being with us.
This
Yes.
is great.
Yeah, and for the audience, thank you for listening, because we know without the audience, there is no podcast.
Absolutely.
And if you are a leader and you know this conversation is valuable, I invite you to share this episode. Share it with a colleague, a friend, a family member who's in leadership, whether they're in leadership in an organization or whether they're in leadership in a community or in any capacity, because this conversation tracks across different contexts. And please leave us your comments and your reviews, because I want to know, and I want for the people coming behind you to know the value that we're bringing in this podcast. So, with that, thank you for being here. And until the next time we see you, stay empowered.